Good morning. Welcome at the webinar series Promising Cities for International Business. Every other week, World Trade Center will introduce another city in the world to stimulate trade. This week, we will introduce you Turku in Finland. My name is Evert-Jan Schouwstra. I'm the director of the World Trade Center Leeuwarden, located in the north of the Netherlands. World Trade Center is an organization supporting and assisting companies with international ambition and help them to professionalize their export and import by providing knowledge, leads, and business contact. We help you to find the right business partner by using our international network of over 325 offices in 90 countries and our huge database with over 150 million contacts. Through our network of over 20 World Trade Center coaches and consultants, we help you with your international strategy. We are your partner when you start with exporting or when you would like to extend your network in the world. We grow business. This webinar program is offered by World Trade Center Netherlands Alliance, consisting of 10 offices in the Netherlands, Horizon Flevoland, and our local export clubs, Export Club Noord and the Friese Export, and of course, our partner for today's event, World Trade Center Turku. Before we go to Turku, some logistics for today. The webinar is in English, and at the end of the presentation, there is enough time for Q&A. You can ask your question by using the chat function on your right. If your question is not raised, then we will get back to you with an answer after this webinar. We will record this webinar. So, today we present you the city of Turku, located in the southwestern part of Finland. It is the oldest city in Finland, and the city is home to about 190,000 people. Turku is one of the top cities with a free business environment. The city is referred to as a very fine environment to live in, with high ratings for housing, commuting, and safety. Turku is one of the largest cities in Finland and has a diversified economy. Important sectors are the service industry, tourism, but the city has also an important harbor and is the center of agriculture and industry in southwest Finland. The important products manufactured in Turku are machinery and food products, but focuses at the moment on the high-tech industry. The Turku Science Park counts several companies in the bio and information technology. So the opportunities are there. However, to invest in or to export to Finland need good preparations and good contacts. We have a great program for today. We will start with a presentation by Niko Kunnarainen, Director of Business Development in the city of Turku, followed by a presentation of World Trade Center Turku by Mr. Jani Rusi, Director of Operations, and we will finish with an interview with Mr. Ashwin van der Woude, CEO of Urban Z Limited, a Dutch entrepreneur having his company in Turku. So our first speaker is Mr. Niko Kunnarainen, Director of Business Development in the city of Turku. He will introduce us the city and the opportunities in Turku and the region. But before I give the floor to Niko, we will start with a nice video introducing the city of Turku. Enjoy. Right.
So good morning, everybody. I think I can start. Hopefully you found our video very inspiring, and there was a lot of details, of course. I will run through a few of them to introduce our region, and hopefully then we have further discussions about investments here or our export efforts in the future. As you saw from the video, so when we are talking about our region, we really want to point out that we are one of the access routes to the whole Europe. We are on the 10D corridor 5, so that means that our logistic area is growing all the time. There is going to be great investments in our ports, in our railways, in our motorway, in our airport area. So kind of the multimodal network of our region is growing all the time. And of course, during the pandemic, the significance of Turku has risen yet again. For example, this is the access route for logistic items to Stockholm, for example. So the whole logistic system between Sweden and Finland is running through Turku and the Naantali ports. We, of course, really much point out that we are an entrepreneurial city and region. We now have 22,000 companies, growing approximately 1,000 companies per year. So we are finding new startups. The whole entrepreneurial region is growing. More and more companies which have an international activities, or should I say more global companies, are existing all the time. So this entrepreneurial spirit that you will find here in Turku is one of our key points. We don't talk that much about the cities or the municipalities, because basically in Finland the regions are the most significant kind of a area to talk about. So we are talking about the Turku business region, where there is 11 municipalities. Turku city is of course the biggest one, but of course in whole region there is 320,000 inhabitants and growing all the time. 22,000 companies, and what is the most significant thing is that we have 6 universities, 2 universities, 4 universities of applied sciences, which means that we have 40,000 students here in this area. So it means that you have these new brains, newcomers, new startups coming from the student life and from the academic life all the time. And this is the kind of a backbone why we have this growing area. Of course, the city strategy also points out and looks to the future. So of course, the improving citizen well-being is one element. So we are doing different kind of smart city activities and kind of finding the way to create economic competitiveness in a sustainable way. One topic where we need more and more companies to solve with us different kind of things, for example in traffic, is that we have to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2029. We are one of the world's most bold cities in this achievement, and therefore, for example, our mayor has been in Paris, now in Scotland. So keeping in mind that we have to solve also problems that are worldwide, and this is one element where also the city of Turku is seeking new ideas from different companies to solve us this big problems. We are of course one of the smartest. For example, this is from Future Today Institute rankings in 2019, and actually just now all the city leaders are sitting next door and trying to solve these smart city issues. We are now in World Trade Center also, which is located in the heart of Science Park area, and this is the kind of a hotspot of our trade and our businesses that has kind of a background of universities. In this area, there are, as I mentioned already, over 40,000 students. There are 16,000 employees. There is the university hospital, over 400 professors, over 400 companies and organizations. And this is the kind of a spearhead project of the city of Turku. So how we will make this even larger, even more dynamic area in the future. And there, of course, when we are located here in the Science Park area, it means also that we are quite close to city center. And this is not actually so normal in the European way. The science parks or the universities are often located quite far away from the city center, so they are kind of pushed in the borders of the cities. This is not the case here in Turku. So you find all the academic people or the university people quite close by to the city center, and this is one real significant topic that the companies value for making business here in Turku. We already have had quite a lot of investments here in this area, but they are growing all the time, as I mentioned. The big plan is that we will have here kind of next to the World Trade Center, over 13,000 new workplaces, 20,000 new inhabitants, and quite a lot of new also buildings where these startups and businesses are going to work along. So when thinking also throughout the pandemic era that we have had last couple of years, we also have to change how the city is planned and how actively we are changing different areas. And this is one of the kind of a DNA of Turku Science Park, where we have this 24/7 to 365 ideas. So working all the time and active area where housing and businesses work alongside. Then a few words also about our business kind of a cluster. So Turku Science Park Limited is leading the kind of innovation ecosystem that we have here in Turku, and we tend to think that we have 5 spearhead clusters. I will run them quite quickly through, and then through discussions we will perhaps point out even more. We have seen already in few months, last months, that we are going to be in a kind of a growth curve again after the COVID. But as you see that we have had kind of a long period of growth before also the COVID-19, where actually online businesses are growing. So our clusters are in good shape, but still we are of course finding new solutions, new companies, new startups to kind of push this growth. Maritime Turku is the first one to point out, where of course the Meyer Turku shipyard is one of our stakeholders, one of our key companies, where the biggest and most luxurious cruise liners in the world are made. We also have autonomous maritime cluster growing all the time, where there is big players like Kongsberg Maritime Research and Development Center here, but new startups that has this kind of a platform economy ideas going on. We also are supported by the Tech Turku, where, for example, Mercedes cars, battery technologies, Sandvik autonomous hulls and loaders are made here. So different kind of very inspiring solutions made here in our area. Of course, nowadays where circular economy and that kind of elements are growing all the time, we also point out the Clean Turku companies, where new solutions are made, for example, in hydrogen industry, and the kind of a backbone of all these industries are the chemical solutions, chemical know-how that comes out of our universities, and most of the startups, most of the companies are original from these universities. Then, of course, have to point out we were the European Capital of Culture in 2011, so 10 years ago, and we have a quite big experience in industries here, where of course tourism in one element, but we also focus in film industry, gaming, different kind of new tourism attractions and so on. And this is of course the growing industry at this moment. Then the health Turku sector, where kind of a strongest know-how is in pharmaceutics, is in diagnostics. We are the hotspot in Finland, for example, in pharmaceutics. Almost 75%, nowadays even more, actually almost 80% of Finland's pharmaceutical export comes from Turku region companies. We also have big pharma located here. For example, the Bayer Turku makes contraceptionals, which is exported in throughout the world. So also big pharma is located here in Turku. Nowadays we talk more and more about the platform economy, of course, and these spearhead clusters that we have are in these platform economy fields: smart ships, smart finance, smart health, smart energy, so on. So when going to be active here in Turku as a company, you are involved in also the big questions, big platform economy questions in the world. So therefore, I welcome you also here in Turku and Turku business region. Of course, we are also seeking new talents throughout the world. So we have different kind of talent activities, why to work in Finland. So also attracting talents to come and work here in Finland in our international companies. We have talent calls and so on going on. So we are not, of course, we are an island in the sense that you have to actually come by sea or so on to be in Finland. But we really want to be an active player in the world, of course, also attracting talents here. We also help businesses to land here in Finland. We also, of course, have the World Trade Center. Jani will introduce it more thoroughly. But also the Turku Science Park Limited is of course helping the companies. There are services for startups, growth and scale-ups, and internationalization, where actually Jani's World Trade Center is the main key player. I mentioned already that we are kind of leading the innovation ecosystem, and that means that the key stakeholders are involved every month, actually understanding, trying to lead, being in a kind of a triple helix model all the time. Rectors of the universities, the mayors, the key chairman or chairpersons of our Chamber of Commerce. So it's kind of a easy access actually to our innovation ecosystem when you start your businesses here in Turku. So by these words, I would like to welcome you and do this whole discussion of cooperation between our companies and activators. I think this is my presentation now, so that Jani can go a little bit further. So of course my slides are provided to you. There are more details about our clusters and so on. So please go run them through when you have more time and be in touch. Thank you.
Did we have any questions for Nico right now, or should we just move forward? I think that's the answer. That let's move forward.
Okay, let's keep in touch.
Okay, so let's move what we do here in the World Trade Center Turku, and here we have some of the pilots that we've been doing. I've been working for the World Trade Center roughly a year and a half now, and of course we all know that the pandemic has been with us almost all that time. So we are still sort of building the processes. We have had the World Trade Center in Turku since 1994, but we have sort of relaunched it since I started in 2020. And we had a grand opening event just the other week where we brought all the key players together. But this picture here shows a little bit how we want to think about the business, how we support the exporters, the exporting companies, the importing companies in Turku region. And we want the businesses to be in the core. Whatever the businesses need, we need to build the services, the networks around that. And we started building the business club idea, but of course no physical on-site meetings were allowed. So we did this sort of light version of it and have had few online meetings around it. But of course, I hope that things are moving forward a little bit faster in the upcoming year. We have partners for the businesses going out of Finland, but also businesses coming to Finland. So our partners work, for example, that we have some law companies, financing companies, some go-to-market analysts, and sort of export consultants, and in many fields. And we believe that's very important that they bring their key knowledge to our businesses here in Turku region. And of course, then we have this whole Team Finland idea. We have a lot of different governmental organizations that support Finnish companies overseas, also financially here in Finland, guaranteeing their loans, giving them some different kind of funding, lots of different instruments, and of course also a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, a lot of experts in their field. And then of course, when we talk about the World Trade Center, we have the whole global World Trade Center network in over 90 countries, and that's a good ground to start with. But of course, there are other networks that we are highly involved with as well, so that we can provide as good service for the companies that is needed. We did a small survey for roughly 50 companies answered, and these are the fields that they needed the most help, especially like cultural orientation, which you will probably talk a little bit with Ashwin as well a little bit later. Some sort of networking and market evaluation was something, but bringing people together. And I think that's now the core thing that we are focusing here in the World Trade Center. And we have built this roadmap for our businesses, either here in Turku region or overseas. So whenever there's a need, how we approach it, we want to be the initial point of contact, that people know that whenever it's something related to international business, Jani is the go-to guy. They come to me, I'm easy access for them. And then I'm sort of that, we have this virtual World Trade Center building. I describe it like that, and I'm the lobby service. So we have a lot of floors in our virtual buildings, and the other one is sort of the governmental side, the Team Finland operators, and the other one are the private businesses. And my job is to talk shortly with the businesses, understand what they need, and then direct them to the right floor with the right door behind that. And it sometimes might be that you need to talk first to first floor and second floor and third floor, and then take door 5, 8, and 10, whatever the need is. But just to sort of question a little bit what they are doing, why they are doing it. Why would you want to go to Netherlands, for example? And have you really thought it through? And what is your key goal with this sort of point that you are doing. And that's what we have started to do, and now moving a little bit forward with that. And then, of course, some sort of services is needed to provide as well. So we offer different kind of seminars and trainings, still mostly online. We have monthly international meetups. Next one again in January. I think the December is everyone preparing for the Christmas and getting everything done by the end of the year. So December is quite hectic time for many companies. But then back again in January. So that's open for all the businesses around the world. And with certain topic, even you can join if you find it interesting. And our goal with these meetups is always to create business opportunities. So actually, we have had during 2021 7 of these so far, and I know that there are 5 different companies or 5 new business opportunities have started, and there's new business in Finland but also overseas from Finland. So it has served its purpose. Of course, networking events, because that's what the companies need. My job is also to be this business pimp, putting businesses together and matching them up, creating new business opportunities, connecting people like Nokia did in Finland with their phones, business delegations from and to Turku region, and then of course different kind of information that we provide to our members and the network. And one more thing I want to share with you is this program that we are now building. It's called Preparator program for Consortiums. So we used to have this sort of export ring program here in Finland, where a consultant built a group of 4 or 5 companies and started exporting together with these companies. The problem was that it was built by the consultant who got paid by the companies, and the results were a little bit shady sometimes. 1 or 2 companies might have got good results, but the rest felt that they were sort of left in an offside position. So now we have sort of shaken things a little bit and want to create a small preparator program for that, bringing businesses together who need wider shoulders to go abroad or to find the new markets. And eventually the goal is that this program will be international, so that if there's a company in Turku that needs different kind of help, we can find one in Netherlands, we can find one from Germany, one from Poland, one from Sweden, and they can combine a consortium and start selling, for example, to Asia or America. Because that's what we need to do if we want to keep Europe, if we want to move up a little bit and compete with Asians and Americans. But that's about it. I think that's my few words, what we do here in World Trade Center Turku. And if you get more questions, we can take it after Ashwin's interview phase. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, wonderful. The way you and Nico have presented Turku as a city, I mean, it opened my eyes, and I see many different opportunities in cooperation. Also because our regions are pretty similar. So thank you for that. I'm happy that I can introduce our next guest, and that is our last speaker is Mr. Ashwin van der Woude. He is CEO of Urban Z Limited. Urban Z delivers a significant positive impact on air pollution in cities by building communities that collaborate with local governments and measures cities in great detail to help its citizens make decisions to optimize their health and air quality. Wow, that's a lot of information, Ashwin.
Nice introduction, thank you.
Let us know from what exactly you do.
I'll give a short introduction of where I come from. So I've been in Finland since '99, and of course I've lived in the Netherlands before that. My background is mostly in IT and software development, and specifically Linux and open source. But many years ago, I've also done an MBA, for which I graduated with distinction. 7 years ago, I started my startup journey here in Finland, in Turku, and I've been active in the local startup community, I would say. So I've been part of the board of Boost Turku, which is the local entrepreneurship society. I'm holding a position as a president of Toastmasters at the moment, and I've been business coach in several programs that have been going on here over the years. And several years ago, I've started UrbanZ, as you've introduced very well. And we are still growing, and we're still struggling, of course, as well, as we always are as entrepreneurs. There's always the next challenge to overcome. And that's sort of interesting to see. What I like to do is observe as well. And what I've seen in the Turku business region is there's a good community going. Turku has a lot of influx from students. They have a lot of influx from new businesses, and it sort of all comes together. And because Turku is quite small, you can find each other easily, and you can also connect with people that are like-minded, which I think is really nice about Turku. And then there's a lot of support. The university is one of the larger universities in Finland, so there's a lot of support also in that sense, which I've made use of with my business as well. So that's short about my background.
And what exactly do you do for your company?
So we're still very much in the early stages of development. So the concept is very clear. We are building a product where we are able to measure air quality in detail, as you said in your introduction. That's the goal. That's not something we have done fully yet. We have not really deployed such a system, but we have done small projects. So there was a small city a bit further, about half an hour away from Turku, called Salo, where actually Nokia had its factory when Nokia was still in its golden days. That's now gone, of course, but they have a very vibrant community there going as well. And what we did with the city of Salo is where they were interested in several research questions. They have an incineration plant where they're burning basically waste and then also generating energy from that. And they were interested in what the pollution patterns are from it. And that's a project we did, for instance, for them, and we measured over a period of 10 weeks. Every week we did 2 days of measuring. So that was an interesting project. So this is the type of project I've been doing so far. Our focus is now a little bit more on the B2B. We're trying to find other business models that might work to combine, for instance, air quality measuring and other types of data. It doesn't necessarily be environmental, with outdoor billboards, so that people to create more awareness, for instance, when it comes to air quality. So these are the types of initiatives we have. We have reached out, of course, also to consumers, and we have not really fully built communities yet, but so far we have had 600-700 responses of people that are interested in participating in some way or another. And the next step for us is to sort of finish our product development so that we can actually do the measurement and scale that up. And that's sort of where we are at the moment. And that's a little bit capital intensive. There's software development involved. There's some expensive sensors involved. And that has been our biggest struggle, is to sort of get enough capital going to finish that part of our project.
How is it to live in Turku?
Turku is a fairly small city. I think according to Dutch standards, my birth city, Den Bosch, is not dissimilar from it. I think if you would want to compare it to a city in the Netherlands, it's interesting. I think Turku is quite small, as I said, so it's easy to connect with people. It's easy, not just because it's small in the sense of geographically small, it's actually quite widespread. If you think about it in that sense, the amount of people is quite confined. But what is also interesting about Finnish culture is that organizations tend to be quite flat. So that also means you can talk with CEOs, you can talk with other managers if you would work in a company. But it also translates into being able to approach people quite easily. If you go to business meetings or business events and these types of things, people are quite open and easy to approach. And I find that very interesting. And I think that is also a point of reference for Dutch people. So Dutch people tend to be also quite outwardly looking. Comparatively, Dutch people tend to be a bit more talkative than the Finns are. But I find that the Finns are very open, and I find that very comforting and also very helpful.
Okay. And other cultural differences that you have experienced in those 7 years?
There's several, yes. The way Finns make decisions is fairly different. Of course, I've not lived in the Netherlands for almost 20 years, but the Dutch tend to be more consensus driven, whereas the Finns, they have discussions, sure, and then eventually somebody makes a decision. And that's quite a different way of decision making. So I think the Dutch model of decision making is closer to what the Swedes are doing, for instance. And the Finns they do their own thing, and both work. As a CEO that I once worked for said, the Swedes, they take their time, they discuss, and they go forward. The Finns are more like rally driving. It's really fast and course adjusting all the time, but in the end, they both reach the target, and that just in different ways. And that sort of illustrates the difference, I think.
How is it with the language?
Finnish is not easy to learn, I must say. So if you come here, I think there's not, nowadays especially, most people speak English. So there's not really any sort of trouble. When you want to do Finnish business in Finland, and it definitely helps to know some Finnish depending on the sort of industry that you're operating in. The Finns tend to like that more. The Finns tend to be a little bit shy when it comes to their language abilities. But that doesn't mean that this is not there. Their English is perfectly fine. They just want to be having the feeling that they're perfect in English. And if they feel that they're not, then they're reluctant to do any speaking in English. But once they talk, it's no problem at all. The English is perfectly good. Of course, if you know Swedish, if you know German or some such, you can get somewhere as well with some types of people. So there's a quite large proportion of people that speak Swedish. And German is more towards the older population, the older residents of Finland. They might speak German, but English is generally no problem at all.
Okay. I got a question by Eric, and he's asking, are there difficulties concerning culture in Finland compared to the Netherlands? So, I mean, we have spoken about cultural differences, but are there also difficulties concerning?
Yes. Now, of course, I've been here a while, so I'm starting to be blind to that. But sure, there are. I think the decision-making thing might be something that might set you back a little bit. The Finns don't tend to look for consensus, so that might be point of friction as well, because you make an assumption that, oh, we're looking for the same thing, but that's not necessarily the case. Finns tend to make decisions elsewhere, so not necessarily during a meeting. It might happen that way, but not always. Other points of friction. Some Finns don't talk too much, and they like it that way. And I tend to be one that talks a lot. So I've seen that, for instance, in conferences or trainings, or I'm the one that asks the questions. The Finns tend to be quite silent. And that's interesting. But I tend to ask the questions they're thinking. So that works out perfectly well. But that is certainly a difference. If you would expect participation from an audience, then you hardly get that. That's very difficult to get from a Finnish audience.
In the Netherlands, we are pretty reserved in a sense of inviting people to come to their houses. But what we have learned also from other Scandinavian countries is that the attitude towards receiving people is a little bit different in Scandinavian countries. Is that the same in Finland? I mean, we talk about the saunas or whatever.
Saunas. Sauna culture is an interesting culture, I think. When it comes to certain types of businesses, decisions are made in saunas, which is interesting as well. Sauna culture, the Finns tend to be quite open when it comes to these types of things. I think even mixed saunas, it doesn't always have to be segregated between genders. That's not uncommon, let's say. Most people are aware that this is not something that especially foreigners are very comfortable with. But the sauna culture is interesting, I think, in Finland. It's usually something that you do privately, though. It's not often that you do that as a group, but it does happen. Openness in general, I think the Finns are, well, how would I describe it? They like their distance, and there's nothing wrong with that. You need to know that. So So the example that I've heard years ago, where Finns, some types of Finns, like to go on hikes, and in Lapland there's a lot of space to go hiking. So the story was that one hiker saw another hiker a few kilometers away, and said, "Okay, that's too close. I'm going in the other direction." So that sort of illustrates part of the attitude of the Finn, in a way, that they like their personal space, and that's to be respected. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But that's certainly a difference, I think, where the Dutch easily make small talk. Small talk is not something that Finns do very well. So, and I intend to do that. I ask questions.
Except the weather.
Except
the weather.
Except the weather, yes. if there has been a little bit of evening snaps or some drinks, then they loosen up. So then, and that's generally the Finns know themselves as well. So if they have parties, company parties, then they make sure that happens. So that's really a way of bonding and connecting, and I think that's very important. And that happens quite a lot. And sauna culture fits in with that, because sauna and drinking naturally go together.
And topics then that can be discussed next to the weather. Is it, for example, like ice hockey or whatever sports? Is that popular in Finland to use?
Well, I'm not a sports fan, so that's difficult to answer for me. But topics that are discussed, can be the weather, of course. Politics is not something that usually isn't discussed either. Politics, religion are not things that you usually discuss. So the usual discussions are more about your hobbies and the things you do and what keeps you busy. So quite personal topics in that sense, but not super personal. So it tends to stay quite at the surface. And as I said, the distance is there. The personal distance is important. So but once you get a Finn to be a friend of yours, then that will be a true friend. That is also a good thing about it.
Are there other Dutch companies active in Turku region, or should I ask that question to Jani or to Nico?
Oh, that's a question.
We have few.
We have a few.
SimPower is in this building. They are Dutch based.
Okay, SimPower is one, I understood. There are also, of course, Finnish companies that Dutch people don't know, but other than that, Dutch companies in Finland.
Well,
and what is the attitude towards the Dutch companies?
Generally positive, I think. I don't think there's any issue with that. I mean, the Finns
I can join the conversation.
Yeah, please, Jani.
So
yes.
I'm joining.
Please, Nico. Yeah. Maybe Nico and Jani, you both can also join. That would be great, because we have a couple of questions.
Unfortunately, Nico had to go to the next. They have this big seminar for the city directors in the next room, actually. So that's why it was very convenient for him to drop by here. But if we have something for Nico, we can, of course, send him email and connect them people with him later on as well. But I tend to say that in many ways, I think Finns have a very good understanding of Dutch and the companies. Also, political wise, I know that in the European Union, we have lots of common interests that we are quite strict about the financing politics and so on. So I believe that there are really good common grounds to cooperate, and we have few small businesses that are originally based in Netherlands, and they are located here in Turku. But I'm not sure about these bigger companies here.
Nothing comes to mind, at least. I would do the research for that. But there's not an obvious presence, let's say, of Dutch companies here in Finland, at least not in Turku. Okay. So that's certainly one thing.
I got another question by Eric. He's asking, concerning the business climate, are there governmental incentives for companies to settle?
There are several. Business Finland is quite active and is the main organization in Finland that does this. That's for Finland-wide, and we also have regional centers called, I don't know, not sure what they're called in English. ELY-keskus is the Finnish name for it, but these are regional development centers.
Yeah.
So they also provide funding for specific programs that they might have within these regions. So the southwest of Finland is one of those regions. And one of the programs that they're now launching is, of course, within the EU framework, is more based on green technologies and becoming and these types of efforts and programs that are coming out of EU, but also have an interest, of course, from the region itself. And there's funding, I think, a significant amount of funding being available in the next 7 years. I think it was several billions or some such. And it's hundreds of billions, okay. And so my business, of course, is keen looking at that, because that fits in very well with what we're doing, because we have an environmental focus, and also with Turku business region or Turku city and other cities in Finland are interested in the carbon neutral aspect as well. So, but to come back to the question, so Business Finland is usually the place that you go first. They provide an innovation voucher where you can develop your innovation for 5K. You get a service provider to write your report or do a little bit of research for you. After that, we have the Tempo program, which is 50 or 66,000 euro project, but 50,000 of that is funded by Business Finland. And after that, we have development grants that are partially loans or partially grants, and they go to 500,000 or up, even if depending on the program that you're looking at. And the way the Business Finland works nowadays is that they see every step as preparatory to the next step, so that you set and align your targets so that they can align the instruments to whatever your developments are, and that works quite well, I think.
Yeah, I think Finland is one of the best countries for early stage startups because of the support system. We have the guarantee program by Finnvera, which is part of this team Finland. So mostly the companies can get 80% guarantees for their bank loans, and even up to 500,000, or when we go to this European Union, European Investment Fund guarantees, then it can be up to some millions. And we did some research here with some startup entrepreneurs a couple of years back about the whole startup ecosystem in different countries, and Finland was definitely in among the top 5 in early stage companies. One thing that sometimes come along or come to the way is that we are still a little bit equity poor country. So even though we are now having more news about the exits and big numbers and unicorn companies coming up, we are still not that good at investing ourselves. But also among the international investors, Finland is very interesting, because some of the companies seem to be sort of on sale in Finland, because the equity here in Finland is a little bit lower level. But yeah, for example, this SimPower, I think that they sort of decided to launch their company here in Finland because of the whole supportive system and the ecosystem supporting this kind of startup company player.
Oh yeah, that's also one of the questions that Ben was asking. From why should we? What advantages does Finland have in comparison to other Nordic countries to start? And that brings me also to another question, and maybe you can add to it, Ashwin. But why should we choose Turku to start in instead of Helsinki?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'll ask you first question first, just a general thing about Finland. What is good about Finland is that education is free. So that means that the level of education is very, very high compared to many other countries, even in Europe. So talent is easy to get in that sense. The downside is that people tend to not be very entrepreneurial. So they don't necessarily understand that aspect of it, and they will find jobs in larger businesses. So that's certainly a downside of the Finnish system. But that is certainly a good reason still to be in Finland, because you need that talent, you need access. And what is also interesting of the engineering perspective of what Finns bring in, they're very keen to create quality. And I think that's a good mindset. That's not a mindset that you easily cultivate yourself. So, and if that's already present, I think that's for me, a very good reason to be in Finland. Then what was the next question? The next question about Turku, Finland. Turku versus Helsinki.
Helsinki, yes.
Helsinki is not too far away. So it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So it's not, for Finnish terms, that's not far. For Dutch terms, you're in Germany, but or in Belgium if you drive 2.5 hours. But for Finnish terms, that's not very far. Opportunities, of course, are bigger in Helsinki. There's no denying that, because we talk about Helsinki, but the Finns don't think about Helsinki alone. They talk about the capital region. So that includes a city called Espoo and a city called Vantaa, which are sort of merged together in one big region. They're distinct cities otherwise, but if you drive from one to the other, you don't see a difference, which of course we know in the Netherlands as well. They drive from The Hague to another part of, nowadays it's all The Hague, but earlier, of course, it wasn't. We had these villages around. Mm-hmm. But I think a reason to be in Turku is that it depends a little bit of what you want. As Nico also said, there are some clusters here that are very strong. So in the pharmaceutical and the bio is fairly strong. There's a very big university here that makes it, Turku is also small. I think that is certainly also a benefit to some extent. And if you want to do things with the maritime industry, then of course that's also one aspect. For me to be in Turku, of course, has been mostly on a personal level. I found my ex-wife here, so that's the reason I'm in Turku. And my children are here, that's the reason to stay in Turku. But Turku has an interesting dynamic, I think. It's easy to connect with people, which is, of course, something that you don't necessarily have in a larger city like Helsinki. So that is certainly one thing. The connections are small. And because Turku is small, they want to maybe have the ambition to be something more. And I think that is interesting as well. So, and that's something a larger city might not have. Downside is, of course, Turku doesn't have as much money, as Jani also pointed out, whereas Helsinki might have more. So
but I would say that we have this sort of triangle in the southern part of Finland with Turku to Helsinki, which is only 1.5 hours from here, actually. If you drive from Kupittaa, where we are located, the World Trade Center, in Helsinki, you get 1.5 hours by car and by train. And they are even building the faster train now, so it will be a little bit over 1 hour in the future. And then we have Tampere, which is located a little bit north from here. So we have the sort of triangle. These are the big three cities that are growing. And depending, of course, what you want to do, like Nico also said, Turku is the main route to Stockholm, for example. We have the ferries that go there in roughly 10 hours. We have the direct flights. So especially if you do Nordic business and Sweden is one partner, then Turku is, of course, a great location. Also, when thinking about competing inside Finland, because Helsinki is already getting quite packed. It's quite a small area, the central area of Helsinki. The prices of living for a town with less than roughly 500,000 population, maybe 600,000 in Helsinki, and then the capital area is 1.2 roughly. The cost of living is way higher. It's like double compared to the Turku region, and it depends on, of course, what you need and what kind of contacts you need. It's easy access to capital area from Turku, but if you need to be there every day, of course, it doesn't make sense to maybe live here. But maybe in the future more so, and then of course the closeness to the Sweden and the background of Turku is that we were the capital of Finland at that time when we were part of Sweden, and we have had a close cooperation with Stockholm probably all the time, and that was one of the reasons why the capital was moved to Helsinki, because the Russians, when they conquered Finland from Sweden, they thought that Turku is too close to Stockholm, that they can easily come by boat and take us back. So there are some historical points as well, and I see a few strong points. Of course, one is again, if you think about the whole Finland, the Russian border. So we have a long border with Russia, and if you want to do at some point business to the east, Finland is a great location to be, and we have a quite good connection with the Russian, even in these difficult times that we are now facing in the Polish border, for example, with the Belarus. So I think that's one good. We still have the business connections. And what else? Well,
one thing we could add is that in Finland we're fairly good at using technology. It's very almost anything can be done online. And it also means that people are used to it. So from some perspective, it doesn't really matter whether you're in Helsinki, Tampere, or even Turku.
Yeah.
You can find talent anywhere, and they're willing to work remotely.
Yeah.
So, and that happens especially now because of COVID, that has become more of a default. But also before COVID, this was not uncommon to sort of have people work remotely. And we're very used to using technology in Finland, and that's partially because of Nokia, of course, and that sort of things.
Yeah.
But Tampere, Helsinki, and Salo/Turku are the old Nokia sites. So there's also a lot of small businesses, a lot of engineering talent around in those cities. So, and it doesn't really matter where you are.
Yeah, and of course.
Thank you, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we have run out of our time. I mean,
one last thing I have to say.
Yes,
Finland,
please.
among these few researches, Finland is the happiest country in the world, and we have the purest air and lots of forest, which actually is also a problem in EU because we have so much forest that they don't think that we treat it right. So you can actually live in the middle of forest in Finland if you need that kind of nature quietness.
Yeah, and Christmas man is also close by, huh?
Yes, you can find the Santa Claus.
Santa Claus is there, yes. Well, thank you. Again, also thanking Nico, Kunareinen, and you, of course, Jani and Ashwin, for presenting your city. I think you did a great job, and it is wonderful that we give attention to Turku, and not only to Helsinki, but also to the Turku region. And I hope and I trust that several companies will also get back to us with requests in regards to what else opportunities are there. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about was about the Meyer possibilities in the marine sector, but I think we can deal with those questions later on. Again, definitely. Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to know a little bit more on your city. Yes, listeners, in a few days, we will publish this webinar on YouTube. We will send you an email, including contact information of the presenters, but also of the organizations. And there was one listener who was asking about contact information. We will send it to you with this email. So this was already our 28th webinar in our series, Promising Cities for International Business. Please visit our website to review all previous webinars. Next webinar will be on December 16th, then we will introduce you the city of Denver, Colorado in the USA. So hopefully you are able to join us there and look for new opportunities in the city like Denver. Other webinar series that we have is it's called Next Step in Export. On December 2nd, we will have a webinar program in this series, and we will focus on how to set up your own sales office in Germany. So on our website, you will find more information and you can register there as you did for our webinar. Maybe also another recommendation, listen to our bi-weekly podcast series. It's called Exportverhalen, Export Stories. Already over 30 exporters have shared their stories of doing business abroad. They share their experiences and tell us how they set up their international business. You can fit on any podcast channel. It's available like on Spotify or in Apple. Again, if you're in need of export support or looking for a reliable business partner, please use us. You've heard about the World Trade Center network and also on World Trade Center Turku. We like to help you to grow your business. Thanks again to our presenters, and on behalf of all our partners and of course Team World Trade Center, enjoy your day and hope to see you all in a few weeks. Thanks.